Alright guys, in today's video we're going to be addressing a question that I've been getting quite a lot. Why are you not using the Chaperone? Before we get into why I'm not using the Chaperone that much though, I do have a challenge for you guys. Can we hit 2,000 likes on this video? Let's go. Well, basically it's because of sunsetting, essentially. I'm not gonna BS you guys. It's basically because of sunsetting. You do have a couple of pretty nice guns here that you can use that are all available to use for a couple more seasons. This one goes up to 1360, for example. But the Stars and Shadow that goes up to 1410. But the problem is, it's a very limited selection of weapons that you have to use, and this is really a problem for me in Trials of Osiris. Not so much Iron Banner, but Trials of Osiris, where I'm usually trying to help people go flawless, and people come armed to the teeth with the best possible loadouts in the game. I really can't see a primary here, apart from maybe the Stars and Shadow, that allows me to compete in this current sandbox. Now, my favorite weapon to use so far this season has been the Arctic Haze. Fantastic gun. Done a couple of reviews on it. Got Accurized rounds, Killing Wind, Eye of the Storm, Fluted Barrel. It's a great weapon. Problem is though, it's a 720 RPM auto. Doesn't have the greatest range. It's very much something that will succeed in mid-range, in 1v1 engagements. You can really shred people. But beyond mid-range, the weapon is essentially useless. You're not really going to do anything with it. And because most of the maps that are chosen for trials are usually quite long range, it's just not a viable option. Same thing goes for my Nations of Beast. It's a great role, but it doesn't have any range. And of course, my Ancient Gospel has slightly more range. But when you compare it to the Steady Hand or something like the Sturm, where they're hitting you for 90 to the head at like 40 to 50 meters, you just simply cannot compete. Same thing goes for my Old Fashioned. I really like this Old Fashioned, but in this sandbox, 140, especially legendary 140s, are simply just not viable up against the 120s that are just so incredibly powerful in the sandbox. Now, I don't think they're necessarily overpowered 120 hand cannons. They do have a little bit too much range, but the point still stands. When I go through my options, not enough range, not enough range, not enough range, not enough range, not enough range. This thing does have enough range. The Stars and Shadow is probably the one weapon that I think can do really well in this sandbox. And also, I do want to mention the Trustee. You can go ahead and look at it in the collections, because unfortunately I have done the raid a bunch of times and I still do not have a Trustee. It just will not drop for me. So this is another option as well. However, I will say 260 RPM scout rifles will only really succeed in trials on specific maps where you've got enough open space to take advantage of them. If there are maps full of cover, you're never going to secure kills with a scout rifle before someone disengages. They simply take too many shots to kill. If there was something like a high impact scout rifle that I could use in the energy slot, something like this for example, you know, that might be slightly different. But again, this weapon is sunset. If you go through all of these guns here, you can see the ones with the white label, they are all sunset. And as you can see, that is a massive number of options that I previously had that are just no longer available. It's just, you know, it's unfortunate, you know. It is very unfortunate. But with the current weapons I have, like I've already showed you here in this slot, I'm just really limited basically, and that is why you are not seeing so much Chaperone from me. Now, I want to explain as well why I don't like the Stars and Shadow in this current sandbox. That's just because it's good, but the 120 hand cannons offer you similar damage, but they also offer you the mobility that hand cannons, you know, can do that this simply can't. You can't really slide around and jump around using a Stars and Shadow. Even with something like Quick Draw available, it still feels a little bit clunky. But I think if push comes to shove, this would probably be the weapon that I would go with. But like I said, it just doesn't feel that great to me at the moment. I want to talk a little bit about what we are lacking as far as endgame options go. So of course, 120 hand cannons are incredibly meta, the #1 primary by a distance in this sandbox. This is a big flaw of sunsetting, but also just a flaw of the loot in general. There's only ever been one high impact energy hand cannon in the game, and that is this one right here, the Thin Line. Now of course it is sunset, but on top of that, it's just not very good. Look at the stability, handling and reload on this thing. Even if it wasn't sunset, it's so vastly inferior to its kinetic counterparts that I don't know if I would even use it even if I had one. But then again, it is still a 120 RPM hand cannon, and being able to pair something like that with a Chaperone would have been nice. But as I said, there's just very few options available. If we go back to scout rifles and we look at high impact scout rifles, again, a weapon type that I definitely enjoy and would attempt to use in Trials of Osiris. As far as energy option goes, unless my eyes are failing me, I don't see any. Once again, they are all sunset. Same thing goes for 200 RPM energy scout rifles. The Vouchsafe is returning next season, which is 1, but again, there are no options. It's just really tough out here for energy primary weapons. There are just not many to choose from. Same story goes with the high rate of fire pulse rifles. For example, the Claws of the Wolf, or something like a Darkest Before, or even a Horror's Least. You know, they've just sunset basically everything. So there are no archetypes here that really fit into the way I like to play with the Chaperone. I want aggressive based, you know, hand cannons and pulse rifles and even auto rifles, but there's just nothing to choose from. And I really hope Bungie address this. I know they've said new weapons are coming next season. I really hope they think about what archetypes and whether they're energy or kinetic. I hope some thought goes into that and they fill up the vacant spaces with energy weapon archetypes that have not really been given much variety ever, and now there is zero variety because you can't choose any of them. And I would say it's a real issue in this sandbox, and I think that basically covers really why I do not use the Chaperone in endgame activities. Now, just to show you, so say I want to swap off to my duality. There you go, duality with quick draw steady hand, one of the best loadouts in the game. If I want to use a 140, I've got my old fashioned. I also have a bunch of dire promise rolls in my vault. There's a bunch of good pulse rifle options. You've got an awesome 200 RPM scout in Patron of Lost Causes. There's just much more choice and variety and offer in the top slot, and it's kind of always been that way as well. The kinetic primaries have generally always been superior, with 1 or 2 outliers in the energy slot. Looking at Gnawing Hunger or something like Not Forgotten in its prime was another one, but generally speaking, the primaries always tend to feel better in the top slot. So yeah, that is what I wanted to talk about in this video. Now I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section. As always, don't forget to hit that like button, and I will see you guys in the next video.